They say when the end draws near.
They say when death comes close, you don't see darkness. You hear silence. A silence so deep it's louder than any scream. I never believed in end times before. I thought those prophecies were just for people who couldn't face life with both feet on the ground. But that changed the moment the earth held its breath beneath me and never exhaled. My name is Miguel de Santos. I was born in Tacloban, a city that knows what it means when water rises higher than your prayers. I'm a doctor by profession, a Christian by tradition, but if I'm honest, by 2025, my faith had become just that, tradition, something I wore politely but never bled for. I served people's bodies, but my soul was asleep, until the ground beneath Kamchatka trembled. Why was a Filipino doctor in the frozen edge of Russia? It wasn't mission work, not really. I had joined a medical relief expedition with an international Christian NGO. They needed doctors for remote areas where healthcare was as forgotten as faith. I signed up partly to escape, partly to prove I was still doing good, even if I had stopped praying. Kamchatka was beautiful, terrifyingly still. Ice, volcanic rock, steam rising from places where the sun never fully reaches. The locals said the earth talks here, but only to those who are listening. I wasn't. July 30th, 2025. I remember the sky that morning. Blue, but unnatural, like something was missing from the air. No birds, no wind. Even the dogs in the village stared at the sky. I was walking back from the tent where we saw patients when I suddenly stopped. My feet felt it first, then my chest, a deep vibration not from outside, but like the land itself was humming with a groan. It lasted only 32 seconds. No buildings fell, no screams. Just the mountain behind us breathing and something deep inside me breaking. The news later confirmed a magnitude 8.8 earthquake had struck near the Kamchatka Peninsula. Deep focus, they said. No major destruction, they added. But they didn't talk about what I saw in those 32 seconds, or what I heard in the silence that followed. You see, the shaking was only the beginning. What came after was far worse. That night as I lay in my tent, trying to process what had happened, I suddenly couldn't move. Sleep paralysis, maybe. But this was different. I felt pulled out of my body into something vast. I was falling, but not downward, sideways, into another kind of seeing. I saw the map of the world, but not as you see on paper. The earth was covered in fractures, red veins glowing beneath the ice. The coldest places were trembling Greenland, Antarctica, Alaska. But it wasn't just geological. I knew it. I felt it in my bones. It was spiritual. The earth wasn't angry. It was aching, not roaring, but warning. Then I heard it. A voice, not loud, but firm, warm, ancient. It didn't echo. It went straight into me, through me.
The earth is groaning because humanity is bleeding. What you see shaking outside began inside long ago.
I wanted to speak, but my mouth wouldn't move. Then images came. War, hunger, broken families, empty churches, people chasing truth in all the wrong places. I saw children crying not for food, but for their father's presence. I saw nations rising, not in glory, but in arrogance. I saw my own face, cold, religious, but faithless. And the voice said again,
When the ice trembles, the heart must awaken or perish.
When I awoke, hours had passed. Some said I had fainted, others said it was shock. But I knew. I had been shown something urgent, something eternal. The earthquake was not just a tremor, it was a trumpet. And here's what shook me most. No one else in the camp spoke of it. They all moved on, checked buildings, repaired tents, sent emails, as if the ground hadn't just whispered a warning through their feet. And I wondered, how many more tremors will it take before we realize this isn't about tectonic plates, it's about us, our choices, our coldness, our pride. The ground moved, yes, but so must we. That night I wrote in my journal, if the earth is warning us, who are we to ignore it? Little did I know that was only the first sign. I couldn't sleep for 3 nights after the quake. It wasn't fear, it was something deeper, like a question that refused to be silenced. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see those glowing red cracks under the frozen lands, pulsing, alive. I tried to dismiss it as trauma, maybe my brain reacting to stress, but there was a weight in my chest, as if the earth had lodged its groan inside me. On the fourth night it happened again. I had just finished assisting a local nurse with dressing a frostbite wound when my vision blurred, not from fatigue, but from something pulling me inward. I sat alone on a rock staring out at the snow, when suddenly everything faded. I was no longer in Kamchatka, and yet I was. Everything looked the same, but time was different. The snow no longer fell. The steam vents no longer hissed. It was like creation itself was paused, holding its breath again. And then I saw it, a massive crack opening beneath the ice. But instead of lava, light poured out. Blinding, golden, roaring like a lion but speaking like a whisper. I fell to my knees, not out of terror, but reverence. It was beautiful, but it was also a warning. Then came the voice again, that same voice from the night of the quake.
The ice is not asleep, neither is the earth. I have given you signs in the places you thought untouchable.
I saw Alaska shaking, not violently but persistently, like a pulse. Greenland, deep blue tremors beneath the white. Then Antarctica, quiet, vast. And then a flash, a sudden jolt so strong the entire shelf fractured. These weren't random. They were synchronized, intentional. The vision shifted again. I saw scientists examining graphs, confused by the data. No fault lines here, one said. Nothing should be moving, another whispered. But the Earth didn't follow their logic, because this wasn't about tectonics. It was about testimony. Creation was testifying not against nature, but against us. I cried out in the vision, why now? What does this mean? The light answered,
Because what is frozen should not tremble unless something spiritual has shifted.
And then the light turned into a mirror, and I saw faces, not earthquakes, people, some I recognized, friends, family, pastors, even myself. But our faces were cracked, fractured like the ice. The message was clear, the shaking in the ice mirrors, the shaking in the soul. I woke up gasping. My hands were frozen, my knees stiff. I had been kneeling in the snow for hours. One of the nurses ran over and asked if I had collapsed. I said nothing. What could I say that I had seen light erupt from the ice, that I heard a voice speaking from under the crust? But deep down, I knew I had seen something sacred, something urgent, a divine echo repeating what creation was already whispering. The places that were always silent are now speaking, and we would be fools not to listen. Later that day, I did some reading. I found an article published in 2020 about deep tremors in Greenland, unexplained with no clear geological cause. Scientists were baffled. In Antarctica, strange low-frequency vibrations had been recorded, vibrations that didn't match any known patterns. They said it might just be ice shifting, but my spirit screamed, no, it's the soul of the earth responding to the soul of man. I remembered something one of my old pastors once said. Sometimes God shakes the ground so we'll look up. But what if he's shaking the ice because we've grown too numb? That night, as I journaled again, I asked a new question. If even the frozen lands tremble, what else must fall before we wake up? And this time, the answer didn't come from within me. It came from that same voice, as if the snow outside was listening and repeating back.
The fire begins where the cold refuses to melt, and the heart that stays numb will not hear until the roar.
When I returned to the Philippines a few weeks after Kamchatka, the noise of the city felt foreign to me. The jeepneys, the street vendors shouting, even the laughter of children, everything seemed louder, but also somehow empty. I had left the frozen edges of the earth, but something inside me remained cracked. It was as if a fault line had formed within my spirit, and no amount of noise could fill the silence it had left behind. I couldn't stop thinking about that vision, the trembling ice, the voice, the mirror of faces. But one detail kept haunting me more than the rest, the shape. The way the cracks formed across the map, a wide burning loop, like a wound encircling the planet. I didn't understand it fully until I saw a scientific diagram weeks later. A documentary on YouTube titled it simply, The Ring of Fire. It hit me like lightning. That was it. That was what I had seen. The Ring of Fire, a massive horseshoe-shaped belt of tectonic activity that wraps around the Pacific Ocean, starting from the tip of South America, curving through the west coast of the U.S., up through Alaska, across to Russia, down through Japan, the Philippines, Indonesia, all the way to New Zealand. A ring of volcanoes, earthquakes, and pressure points, waiting to be triggered. And Kamchatka right on the edge, right where the chain begins. Suddenly it all made sense. The vision wasn't random. The crack in Kamchatka was the first domino. The code wasn't just spiritual, it was geological. The earth itself was warning us what shakes in one place will echo in another. The Ring of Fire isn't just about magma and plates. It's a prophetic blueprint for what happens when creation responds to corruption. I remembered the words from the light in Kamchatka.
When one point slips, the whole body feels it. Pressure does not disappear, it moves.
And that's what's happening. The pressure is shifting, traveling, and the next tremors won't be in frozen wastelands. They'll hit where the people are, where the foundations are fragile, where the soul is asleep. I began reading more. Japan had reported unusual seaquakes. The U.S. Geological Survey quietly updated risk levels in Alaska and Northern California. Here in the Philippines, we had experienced a sudden cluster of tremors around Davao, mild but strange. The local media dismissed it, but I felt it. Not just underfoot, but within. It was like the earth was whispering in tongues. A friend from church asked me if I was okay one day. I said not really, when she asked why I didn't know how to explain. How do you tell someone that you're hearing the heart of the planet beat faster? She said something simple, but it stuck with me. Maybe God is knocking on the crust, because nobody's answering the door. And that's exactly it. We've insulated ourselves from the voice of the Creator. With technology, entertainment, distraction, pride. We've built towers of self-sufficiency and called it progress. But even the strongest skyscraper cannot stand if the foundation underneath it crumbles. And what is the Ring of Fire, if not a reminder that even the Earth's skeleton can snap? Later, I had another dream. This time, I wasn't in Kamchatka. I was back home. But the ground beneath me was made of glass, and under the glass was fire. I saw different cities, Tokyo, Manila, San Francisco, Santiago, sitting calmly on the surface, unaware. Then I saw a hand reach down, not to destroy, but to tap. Just a tap, a single nudge, and the glass spiderwebbed, not instantly collapsing, but quietly cracking. I heard sirens in the distance. I saw people arguing on the streets, political chaos, riots, news anchors shouting over each other, and above it all, the earth whispered again.
I will not break you, but I will shake you, so you remember who holds you.
When I awoke, I wept, not out of fear, but grief. Because I knew the warning wasn't just about land and lava, it was about love. A jealous love, a righteous God who shakes what is shakeable, to protect what is eternal. And I realized something else. The dominoes aren't just made of rock, they're made of nations, of values, of souls. When the domino falls in Russia, the echo will be heard in America. When the pressure builds in Kamchatka, the release may come in California. And when the tremor hits the spirit of one man, it may awaken the hearts of 1,000 more. The shaking is a chain reaction not of destruction, but of mercy. Because judgment doesn't always fall with fire. Sometimes it comes with a whisper under your feet. That day, I stood on the seawall near my church in Leyte and whispered the only prayer I could find. Lord, if you must shake the world to awaken us, let me not sleep through the shaking. And deep in my spirit, I felt him answer.
I shake because I love. I tilt the earth, so you might stand straight. I stir the foundations to call my children home.
I didn't grow up understanding symbols. In the Philippines, we were taught history in flags and names, never in visions or metaphors. But after Kamchatka, after the trembling, everything started to feel like a symbol, like creation was trying to speak in parables. A week after I saw the Ring of Fire laid out before me like a glowing chain of warning, I had another vision. It didn't come at night. It came at dawn while I was praying outside our church in Tacloban. The air was humid, the sea quiet, and suddenly everything shifted. In front of me stood a giant bear, fur matted with snow, its breath steaming in the cold. But this wasn't Russia. It was somewhere in the spirit, a place beyond maps. The bear trembled not in rage, but in sickness, as if it had been carrying something far too heavy for too long. Its legs buckled. It let out a groan that sounded almost human. Then the sky split open, and from the clouds descended a great eagle wings, wide, powerful, soaring with pride. Its feathers were brilliant, but its eyes were tired. It circled once above the bear, and then, suddenly, it too began to shiver, not from fear, but from the same hidden weakness, as if something had fractured in both of them. And that's when I heard the voice again.
When the bear shivers, the eagle will tremble, and the ground beneath both will become as water.
I cried out, Lord, what does this mean? And the answer came not in thunder, but in truth.
These nations reflect a world that has forgotten me. They soar in power, but sink in spirit. Their wings are strong, but their foundations are cracked.
I knew instantly the bear was Russia. The eagle was America. But this wasn't about military alliances or global politics. It was about something deeper, the soul of nations. Russia had trembled literally. Kamchatka shook. But what shook underneath was more than tectonic. It was spiritual. Russia, long steeped in both faith and oppression, had buried much of its soul beneath tradition and silence. And now, it was groaning. But America the Eagle was something different. In the vision I saw its wings spreading over cities glowing with lights, churches, courts, universities. But the foundations beneath were eroding. The eagle flew high, but below its own shadow was consuming it. Division, pride, identity confusion, greed disguised as progress, freedom twisted into rebellion. I heard another line, not from the voice, but from within my own memory, a verse I had forgotten from childhood. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16:18. I began to understand. The trembling of Russia wasn't isolated. It was the first knock, the first domino. But the shaking of America would be the collapse, not through war, not through an external enemy, but through internal erosion. Because what shakes the earth often reflects what's already shaking in the hearts of men. Later, I read Baba Vanga's warning again, and it pierced me differently this time. When the bear shivers, the eagle will tremble, and the ground beneath both will become as water. I had dismissed her before, but now it was as if she had heard what I was being shown. You see, water is unstable, unpredictable, it shifts under weight, and when foundations become as water, everything built above it collapses. I thought of America once called a city on a hill, a beacon of freedom, faith, and moral clarity. But in recent years, the hill is cracking. Truth is mocked. Conviction is labeled hate. Children are taught confusion. Churches debate the gospel. Justice is redefined by hashtags, and the unborn are still silenced.
When a nation forgets its creator, it invites creation to correct it.
And the correction doesn't always come in wrath. Sometimes it comes in imbalance, in tremors, in storms, in silence that grows too heavy to ignore. I wept that day, not because I feared judgment, but because I saw mercy hiding behind the shaking. God was not roaring to destroy. He was whispering to wake us. That evening, I shared this vision with a group of youth from our church. One of them, barely 17, asked Kuya, "What can we even do? We're just small people in a small country." I smiled through my tears and told her what the Lord had whispered to me in that place between ice and fire.
I do not need a nation to kneel, only a heart, and from that heart I will shake the heavens.
There's something sacred about silence until it breaks. We often think of shaking as something violent, loud, destructive. But the most terrifying tremors are the ones that come without warning, the ones that rise from deep places, far beneath the surface, where no one is looking. That's how the ice cracked, not just in the earth, but in me. After returning from Kamchatka and sharing my visions with our church, I became restless, not anxious, not afraid, just painfully aware that something was moving, not above, not around, but underneath. I began reading every report I could find. There was a string of unusual seismic events no one wanted to talk about. In Greenland, tremors beneath the ice in 2020. In Antarctica, vibrations detected deep under the crust, not from glaciers shifting, but from something deeper. These weren't normal earthquakes. Scientists were confused. Some said, maybe it's just the ice adjusting. But my heart knew better. These weren't geological coincidences. They were reverberations of the human condition. Because when even the frozen places tremble, It means no part of the world is untouched, and no part of the human soul is safe from consequence. I remember standing in front of a globe during a prayer meeting and suddenly realizing something that made me tremble more than any quake. The coldest regions of the planet were the only places left untouched by war politics and bloodshed. But even they were shaking. What does that say about us? I asked the Lord in prayer, why shake the untouched? And once again I felt that same whisper, low but undeniable.
Because nothing is truly untouched when the soul of man is unbalanced.
That was it. The tremors under the ice weren't just warnings. They were mirrors, reflecting not what's wrong beneath the ground, but what's wrong beneath our skin. And suddenly everything made sense. The rise in depression, the surge in suicides, the coldness between families, the digital walls between neighbors, the violence we call entertainment, the silence of empty churches. The earth was speaking, and its first language was groaning. Paul wrote in Romans 8 that creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. For creation itself was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice. I used to read that and skip over it. But now, it's all I see. The shaking of ice is not just a scientific anomaly. It's a spiritual cry. The Lord showed me a vision that shook me more than Kamchatka ever could. I saw a church, not a building, but people. Cold. Still. Dressed in robes of comfort and routines. Their mouths moved in worship, but their hearts were silent. Then, one by one, the floor beneath them began to crack, not from sin, but from indifference. And then the voice came again.
Cold hearts crack first, not from pressure, but from silence.
I watched as these people looked around, confused. They didn't feel judged, just exposed. One young woman fell to her knees. Her breath formed frost in the air. She began to cry, not out of guilt, but from remembrance. And when her tear touched the frozen ground, it melted a small patch of ice. And from that melted space, a seed sprouted. A seed from beneath the ice. That was the answer. The shaking of the cold places wasn't about destruction. It was about awakening.
I do not shake to break, I shake to stir.
He doesn't crack the surface to punish, he cracks it to plant. You see, in our desire to feel safe, we've insulated ourselves with ice habits, distractions, religion without fire. But God doesn't dwell in cold temples. He dwells in living places. And when even the frozen lands begin to move, it's not because the world is ending. It's because God is beginning something new. That night I knelt beside my bed and cried like a child. Lord, break the ice in me. Crack the cold places. Don't let me become numb to your voice. And he answered, gently,
When the ice breaks in you, I will plant something that can never be shaken.
Not long after the vision of the seed sprouting from beneath the ice, I saw something even more terrifying and far more personal. I had been fasting, praying, asking God for clarity, for direction, for confirmation of what I had seen. And one night in the stillness after midnight, I received it. But it didn't come with peace. It came with a warning. In the vision, I stood above a map, not one on paper, but one etched into the crust of the earth itself. And the last tremor, the final fracture, was glowing red beneath one single nation, America. It didn't split in a single line. It cracked like glass from multiple pressure points at once. California, Yellowstone, the New Madrid Fault in the center, the East Coast, each point pulsed with pressure not yet breaking, but on the edge. Then I saw the cities, the bright, proud cities, New York, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Las Vegas. They gleamed with lights. But the light didn't come from above. It came from flames below, as if they were being lit from within by buried fire. Then came the voice.
The final domino will not fall in ice, but in pride, and its fall will not be physical first, but spiritual.
I looked again, and I saw the soul of America, not its people, not its land, but its soul, and it was trembling, not violently, but like a person who knows something is wrong, but refuses to speak. It was a quiet shaking, but more terrifying than any roar. I cried out, "Why, Lord, why America?" And the voice answered,
Because she was meant to be a light, a city on a hill, a nation under God. But she has tried to stand apart from me, and the hill is cracking.
I wept because I knew it was true. You see, this isn't political. This isn't about which party wins or who sits in power. This is spiritual erosion, a silent corrosion of the foundations once built on truth, sacrifice, and reverence for God. I saw children growing up without fathers, taught that truth is relative, that feelings are God's, that freedom means doing whatever you please regardless of consequence. I saw churches turning into businesses, preachers afraid to preach repentance, worship turned into concerts, and altars replaced with stages. And all the while the ground beneath trembled quietly.
What you refuse to shake in prayer will be shaken in stone.
America was once a refuge, a place missionaries were sent from, a place revivals were born. But in this vision, I saw her looking in the mirror and forgetting who she was. And that's when the Domino line came back into view, from Kamchatka to California, from Greenland to New York. A chain reaction not just of earth, but of consequence. I saw small nations watching. I saw my own country, the Philippines, on the sidelines, praying, some mocking, others mourning, because when the eagle trembles, the rest of the world feels the wind. It wasn't hatred that filled me. It was heartbreak, because I knew that judgment was not coming with a hammer, but with a whisper. And if America doesn't fall to war or collapse, she will fall to forgetfulness. Forgetfulness of covenant, of sacrifice, of the blood that was shed not just on battlefields, but on the cross. Then I heard one final word clear and bold.
Before the ground breaks, the heart must break, for what is not humbled in spirit will be humbled in stone.
The vision faded. I awoke in tears soaked in sweat, not from fear, but from the weight of what I had seen. And in that moment I understood. The shaking is mercy. The trembling is grace. The final domino is not about destruction, it's about decision. Will America bow, or will she break? And for us watching from distant shores, praying from islands and small churches, we must not point fingers. We must bow with her, stand in the gap, intercede, because this is not about one nation alone. It's about all of us who have chosen comfort over conviction, relevance over reverence, noise over stillness, rights over righteousness. And if the ground beneath the greatest nations begins to move, then those with hearts anchored in Jesus must be the ones who stand. That night I prayed one last prayer. Lord, shake whatever must be shaken, but spare the souls who still cry out to you. And he answered,
I will shake foundations to restore faith. I will shake pride to reveal mercy. I will shake a nation to save a remnant.
I used to think pole shift was just a sci-fi concept, something you'd hear in a disaster movie or a late-night documentary on cable. I never thought it had anything to do with my faith, with my prayers, with my own soul. But after what I saw, I know better now. The vision came as I stood in worship during a midnight intercession service. The lights were low, the room quiet, people praying softly in tongues. I was still thinking about America, about the final domino, when suddenly everything around me faded. In the vision I was floating in space, looking down at the earth, spinning slowly, peacefully, until suddenly it wobbled, like a spinning top losing its balance. The North Pole began to drift, sliding unnaturally toward Russia. Then I saw compasses spinning, birds flying in the wrong direction, rivers changing course, and then silence. Then came the voice.
The poles are shifting, not just in magnetism, but in morality.
It pierced me like lightning. This wasn't just a change in gravity, it was a reversal of order. What was once stable was now drifting. What used to guide us, truth, righteousness, conscience, was now disoriented. And the consequence wouldn't just be magnetic confusion, it would be spiritual chaos. I saw people wandering not physically but morally, lost in beliefs, lost in identity, lost in purpose. I saw leaders who used to stand for truth now bend for applause. I saw mothers crying because their children no longer believed in right or wrong. I saw pastors silenced, not by governments but by fear of offense. And the Lord whispered again.
When the axis of truth is moved, the entire world spins into confusion.
Then came another image, nations on scales, being weighed, not in gold but in justice. The scale tipped unnaturally, favoring the proud, the perverse, the violent, while humility, mercy, and faith were treated like dust, and slowly the scales cracked. I cried out, "Lord, what is happening to the earth?" He replied,
It is not the earth that is broken. It is the image of me within man that has been twisted. The earth merely responds.
"The earth wasn't attacking us, it was mirroring us. And when mankind changes the moral compass, the magnetic compass follows." Later, when I researched it, I was stunned to find out that scientists had confirmed what I had seen. The magnetic North Pole is shifting rapidly. It used to drift a few kilometers per year. Now it moves almost 60 kilometers annually toward Russia. Planes, satellites, even military navigation have to adjust. But no one connects it to the spiritual realm. No one sees that nature itself is correcting what humanity has corrupted. We distorted gender, and now creation distorts seasons. We exalt self, and now the sun burns hotter than ever. We worship feelings, and now the waves rise higher than they should.
When the creation is out of balance, it is because the Creator has been forgotten.
In the vision I saw this written across the sky: "The cold shall become warm. The warm shall become cold. The rivers will no longer obey their beds. The birds will fly in wrong seasons." And then below it a question, burning like fire: "If even the stars adjust, why won't man repent?" I fell on my knees. In that moment, I didn't just feel grief for the world. I felt grief for myself. For the years I lived as if the world revolved around me. For the prayers I never prayed. For the truth I knew but stayed silent about. And as I wept, I heard the Lord speak again.
The shift is not to destroy, but to reset. The earth is groaning not in wrath, but in labor. I am not ending the world. I am realigning the hearts of those who still listen.
That changed everything for me. Because the pole shift is not just about danger, it's about direction. It is a cosmic signal that the world is off course and must realign, that we must realign. No more halfway faith, no more lukewarm hearts, no more hiding truth in the name of tolerance. The time for wandering is over.
I am shifting the heavens so that the earth may once again point to me.
So, now when I hear news about climate change or freak weather or strange animal migrations, I don't laugh. I don't argue. I go to my knees, because the shaking in creation is a whisper from the Creator.
Come back to me before the compass spins too far to return.
It always begins with silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy kind. The kind of silence that presses on your chest, that stills the birds, that stops even the wind mid-breath. That's what I felt in the final vision. A silence so deep it felt holy, or dangerous, or maybe both. I stood in a field somewhere that looked like the heartland of America. Golden wheat stretched to the horizon. The sun was dim, as if it had forgotten how to shine fully. Then the sky cracked. Not with thunder, but with stillness. Airplanes froze in the sky. Cars stopped in the streets. Screens turned black. Cell signals died, and no one moved. Then came the whisper.
Look to the sky when it no longer speaks. The ground will.
And suddenly I understood. It wasn't about the earthquake. It was about the moment before it. The moment when all our distractions go dark. When we are forced to listen again, to feel again, to remember what truly holds us. Then from deep beneath the wheat field came a groan. Low, sorrowful, like the earth itself was crying. Cracks spread slowly through the soil, not violent, not loud, just inevitable. And in that sacred hush, I felt the weight of everything we'd ignored, our arrogance, our idols, our forgetting.
What you ignore in heaven will rise from below.
I saw images flash like lightning. Cities empty not from bombs but from burnout. Families seated at the dinner table but each person lost in their own screen. Churches with padded pews but no presence. Preachers polishing words while souls rot quietly in shame. Nations trading prayer for policy, conviction for popularity. And then I saw a remnant, a small group, kneeling, some in houses, some in mountain caves, others in abandoned churches, dust on their knees, tears on their faces. They weren't many, but they were real. And over them, the earth stopped shaking. The voice returned.
When all things shake, those who kneel will stand. When the foundations fall, those who bow will be my pillars.
This is what the world has forgotten. We fear earthquakes, wars, economic collapse, but the real trembling, the kind that truly changes nations, begins in the soul, And when we let pride stand too long, the ground itself will humble us.
Before the earth roars, I always whisper. Before the ground breaks, I always call.
The question is, are we still listening? I woke up from that final vision shaking, not from fear, but from urgency. I dropped to my knees and prayed out loud through tears. Jesus, I hear you now. I didn't before, but I do now. I hear you in the silence, in the shaking, in the stillness that screams. Let me be among the ones who kneel before the roar. And in that moment, I felt it, not a voice in the sky, but something deeper. A stillness, then a warmth, then words in my spirit.
No quake is stronger than a heart anchored in me. No shift is too deep for my truth. No roar of earth can drown out a whisper of repentance.
I don't share this because I want to scare you. I'm not here to sensationalize the end. I'm here because I was rescued. Not from death, but from apathy, from coldness, from spiritual sleep. And I believe, with everything in me, that this shaking, this series of dominoes, these trembling pulls, these rumbling cries from the ice and earth are not the end. They are a call to bow again, to repent, to listen, to return. Return to the one who steadies all things. Return to the one whose whisper shaped the universe. Return to the one whose blood still speaks louder than earthquakes. Because even if the ground shakes tomorrow, even if the cities fall, even if the skies go silent, one truth remains unshaken.
Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and he still saves those who call on his name.
So to my brothers and sisters in the Philippines, in America, in Russia, wherever you are, don't wait for the roar. Respond to the whisper. Fall before the shaking, so you can stand when everything else falls. And if your spirit is stirring, if something deep inside you knows this is more than just poetic prophecy or dramatic storytelling, then this is your moment. Not to panic, not to run, but to return.
Come back to me, and I will hold you while the earth trembles. Draw near to me, and I will be your rock when the foundations split. Call on me, and even if the stars fall from the sky, I will not let you go.
This is the whisper, the warning, the mercy before the roar.